The feeder is still full, but the hummingbird isn't there. A few weeks ago, you could count on seeing it at the same time every morning. A flash of green, a ruby throat, one quick hover beside the feeder, then gone. Now you wait. Nothing. And this is the strange part. The bird may have started leaving long before you noticed it. Not because something happened to it, not because it suddenly found a better yard, and not because every hummingbird in America decides to leave on the same August morning. What you're seeing is the beginning of something much bigger, a journey that may already be underway. And the first thing happening is almost invisible. The bird's body is changing. August is not a single departure date for ruby-throated hummingbirds. It is a moving window. In northern parts of their breeding range, some adult males begin leaving in late July or early August. Females often follow later. Many young birds leave later still, and farther south, the schedule shifts again. Along coastal Alabama, researchers tracking autumn passage found hummingbirds moving through over roughly 62 days, from late August into October, with the average passage occurring around September 25th. So when your familiar bird disappears in August, that does not mean every hummingbird has left. It may mean something much more specific. Your bird's part of the journey has begun. But why would a bird weighing only a few grams leave a perfectly good backyard? Because its body has already started preparing for a distance it cannot see. Before the bird disappears, it has to become heavier. Not heavier because it is growing, heavier because it is storing fuel. Pre-migratory hummingbirds can add substantial amounts of fat in a remarkably short period. In some observations, a bird weighing around 3.8 grams gained roughly 0.7 grams in only 4 days. That sounds tiny. For a hummingbird, it isn't. That extra mass is fuel, and the birds that arrive at important stopover sites in better condition tend to have an advantage. Researchers studying ruby-throated hummingbirds found that older birds arrived earlier and with larger fuel reserves than younger birds. They also tended to spend less time stopping to refuel. That gives us a very different way to look at the empty feeder. The bird you knew may not have disappeared because it was struggling. It may have disappeared because it was ready. And the younger birds still passing through are playing a different game. A first-year hummingbird has never made this journey before. It has no personal memory of last year's route. It cannot look at a map. There is no older bird flying beside it and saying, "This is where we turn." Yet it still has to leave. Somehow, it has to move hundreds or thousands of miles toward places it has never seen. And this is where hummingbird navigation becomes especially interesting. Scientists know birds can combine several kinds of information to orient themselves: sun position, magnetic information, landmarks, environmental cues. And hummingbirds have remarkably strong spatial memories for productive feeding locations. But there is an important limit to what science can say. We do not yet know exactly how a ruby-throated hummingbird combines every one of these signals during a migration across the continent. So the honest answer is not that the bird has a perfect internal GPS. The honest answer is more interesting. It has a powerful biological system for finding its way, even though we still don't understand every part of that system. And then the scale of the journey changes everything. Some ruby-throated hummingbirds can cross the Gulf of Mexico. A direct crossing can be roughly 500 to 600 miles, depending on where the bird leaves and where it reaches land. There is no feeder halfway. No flower garden, no convenient branch, just open water. Many hummingbirds are physiologically capable of making remarkably long flights when properly fueled, and models of their potential range under favorable conditions can exceed the distance of a gulf crossing. But there is an important distinction here. Not every ruby-throated hummingbird necessarily crosses the gulf in the same way. Some use routes around the gulf. Some cross open water. Weather can change the calculation completely. Tailwinds help. Headwinds cost energy. Storms can turn a difficult journey into a dangerous one. And young birds may face different challenges from experienced adults. So we shouldn't turn the gulf into a simple heroic legend. The remarkable part is already in the science. A bird that weighs only a few grams can prepare its body to travel extraordinary distances. And it does this without knowing what the journey will look like. Now go back to your backyard, because this is where the whole story started. You noticed one bird. Maybe it came every morning. Maybe it favored the same feeder. Maybe you could almost predict where it would appear. Then one day, nothing. The natural temptation is to think something happened, but an empty feeder does not tell you that. A bird can temporarily disappear because of weather. It can shift to a richer food source nearby. Another hummingbird can displace it. Or, in late summer, it can simply be moving south. And that distinction matters, because migration isn't one giant switch being flipped across the species. It is a procession. One bird leaves, another stays. A northern bird moves through your area. A local bird disappears. A juvenile arrives where an adult had been. For weeks, the backyard can look almost the same, while the population around it is quietly rearranging itself. And there is one detail I find especially interesting. The birds that leave are not necessarily leaving the place behind forever. Banding studies have documented ruby-throated hummingbirds returning to breeding sites in later years. Some individuals have been recorded returning to the same areas across multiple seasons. We cannot look at an unbanded hummingbird and say, "That's definitely the same bird." We don't have that evidence. But we do have something better than a guess. We have repeated records of individual birds returning to places they used before. And the species can live much longer than most people realize. The oldest documented ruby-throated hummingbirds have reached more than 9 years. Think about what that means. A bird that can fit in the palm of your hand can make this enormous seasonal journey again and again and again. The empty feeder in August may not be the end of the story. It may simply be the part of the story where you cannot see the bird anymore. So if your hummingbird has disappeared this August, look at the feeder a little differently. You may be looking at the exact place where a much larger journey began. The bird was not simply here one day and gone the next. Its timing was changing. Its body was changing. Its fuel reserves were changing. Its route was beginning. And eventually, the bird followed all of that preparation south, maybe across the Gulf, maybe around it, maybe stopping along the way. We cannot know which route your particular bird took, but we know what the disappearance means at the larger scale. The journey has begun. Then, months from now, the seasons turn, the days lengthen, and one morning you may hear those wings again. You may see that flash of green beside the window, and you may never know whether it is the same individual. But now you will understand what that absence meant. It wasn't the story ending, it was the part of the story you couldn't watch. Tell me in the comments, has your hummingbird started disappearing yet? And roughly, where are you seeing it? I read every one, and the hummingbird stories are the ones I carry the longest.